Hello, and welcome back to the last part of Chapter 7. So we're going to get into 7.3 and 7.4. Now, 7.3 gets into a different style of solving those percent equations where you still have the rate, the base, and the part, but it's a different type of process. And in some cases, it might seem a little bit easier because there's generally just one step to the process. So, well, let's see what it looks like. Instead of using a proportion, we can use an equation to solve percent problems. By still identifying the percent, the base, and the part, we can put these values into one of the following equations. So we have the first one, P equals BR. So that one will find the part. B equals P over R, which will find the base. And then R equals P over B, which finds the percent. Now you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, this seems a lot more complicated than the previous version, which was just a single proportion, and that worked no matter what I was looking for. Well, that's true, but a way you can remember these formulas very, very quickly is with a little diagram. So if I draw a triangle, and then I kind of split it in half, and then I split the bottom in half, I got three pieces. So let me slide this up a little bit. So I got three pieces. If I put a P in the top and then a B and a R in the bottom, that is going to be my shortcut to determining what I have to do with the other two pieces. So let me show you what I mean. So if we wanted to identify the first formula, all you have to do is say, okay, I don't know what P is in this. And if you don't know what P is, that's what you cover up. And so that tells you what to do with the other two parts. You have to multiply B times R. For the second one, if we don't know what B is, well, we can cover up B and look at what we got. We got P over R, which is what the formula tells us to do here. And then the last one you can see is P over B, so that will give us the last formula. So it's a nice little way to remember those formulas without a lot of, headaches. Like I said, just have to remember this triangle, and then you're in good shape. So let's see how it works in practice. Seems easy enough, but let's see it in action. All right, write and solve an equation to answer each question, each problem. 24% of 300 is what number? So we should know that R is 24% of 300, so that's our base. So P must be our unknown. So if we use our little trick, we have to multiply B times R. So So if we multiply B times R, so 300 times 24%. Here's the extra catch with these. When you use this method, you have to change the percents to decimals and decimals to percents if you're looking for a rate. So in this case, we're going to want to change that 24% to 0.24. And so now, if we multiply those two together, we get 72. So if you're pretty good about remembering to change your percents to decimals and decimals to percents, then this is going to be a little bit faster method for you because you're essentially doing one step. You kind of do that in your head, and then you just multiply or divide, and that's it. So let's try another one. 476 is 70% of what number of circuits? So 70%, that's got to be our R. Of what number of circuits? So that's our B, and we don't know what that is. And so the 476 is going to have to be our P. So looking at our triangle again, we're looking for B. We have to divide P over R. So we got B equals 476 over 70%, but remember we got to change it to a decimal. So let's just do that now, 0.70. So if we divide that on a calculator, I think it's 680, but I'm not 100% sure. It is. So 680 And don't forget your units. If there's, this one didn't have any units, so we didn't have to worry about it, but this one does, circuits. And just for reference, your P and your B always should have the same units. So we do want to put circuits on there. All right, let's try a couple more. So we have 38 stiles is what percent of 50 stiles? All right, so what's what in this case? So what percent? Well, that's going to have to be our R. 50 stiles of 50 stiles, so that's going to have to be our base. And so 38 must be our P. So what does that triangle tell us that we have to do with those two things? Do we multiply them? Do we divide them? Which one? Well, hopefully you're saying divide. We got to put P over B. So 38 over 50, which is 0.76. But we do have to change it to a percent because now we're looking for a rate. So we do have to move the decimal point 2 spots. So it's one of those things, if you're not very good at moving that decimal point or you forget to move it, I would stick with the first method. So really you do have the choice here of whatever works best for you. Let's just do it a few more times just to see if it sticks with you or not. If it doesn't, like I said, you can always fall back to the other method. All right, so 141 is 3% of what number of employees? Well, 3% is going to be our R. What number of employees of that? So that's going to have to be our B, so we don't know what that is. So that's just going to have to be our P. So base is equal to P over R. So 141 over, and if we change 3% to a decimal, it's going to go to the left 2 places, so we're going to need an extra 0 in there. So let's see what we get. So 4,700. And don't forget those units. Now the one thing that typically happens with these problems that students make a mistake on is they'll get their P and their B backwards. And it just happens sometimes. So let's just see what would have happened with this one. If we had flipped these around and said that this was B and that we didn't know what P was, remember we have to multiply those together. So we would have said 141 times 3%. And if we multiply those, we're going to get an answer that's kind of weird. 4.23. So does the question make sense based off of the problem? So 141 employees is 3% of 4.23 employees. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So that's why, it doesn't hurt to just kind of double check that the answer makes sense. And like I said, if you just swap the P and the B around, that usually will fix it if it doesn't make sense the first time around. So keep that in mind as another little trick. Let's do a couple more. 32% of 260 quarts is how many quarts? So 32 is going to be our R. Of 260 is going to be our B. And so P is unknown. All right. So P is equal to B times R. So 260 times, change that to a decimal, 2 places to the left, 0.32. So let's see what that is. 260 times 0.32 equals 83.2. So we got 83.2, and the units are quarts. Not bad, right? The biggest thing you have to worry about is making sure you get your letters correct. As long as you're getting those correct, and R is always that percent, not P, then you should be in good shape. Let's try the last one here, and then we'll wrap up this video. So what percent of 160 liters is 2.4 liters? So what percent? That's our R. We don't know it. 160 liters. So that's following of. So that's going to be our base. And so this is going to be our P. So R equals P over B. So 2.4 over 160, which equals, let's take a look, 2.4 divided by 160 equals 0.015. 0.015, and then move your decimal point. So 1.5%. So you have some options as far as which method or style of solving these types of problems you can do. All right, and in the last section, 7.4, we're going to get into more applications that still revolve around PB and R, and so we'll see that in action real soon. See you in a minute.